When it comes to debugging and troubleshooting, there are some things that we need to be mindful of. Starting off with record triggered flows. When we attempt to debug and we select debug on create, the existing record that we select must meet the entry conditions. Let me show you that. So if we go to the auto name gift transactions flow that we created early, and we click debug and we select on create, it says here run the flow as if the record is created, meaning that whatever record we select, it's going to behave as if it was just created. If it was just created, it doesn't have an ID yet. So let's go ahead and run that. So it does run. If we look at the entry conditions, the latter three are with operator is changed. So we are not changing any of those three, so it's not applicable. The one that that meets the condition is this one. The ID is null. That's why it does work. So it's important that the existing record does match. So if you have a condition like the current amount equals 500, then the record that we select must have 500 in the current amount. If it doesn't and you still need to debug against this record on create, you go ahead and update that record first to that value, and then you come back to the flow and then debug it. I'm assuming that this record is a test record. We're not updating actual records. Okay, now let's go back to the presentation. Let's reload this. And the second thing is on update. And if you select on update, the existing record that we select, we must update it in the flow to meet the condition requirements. Not before, like you don't update the actual record in the database and then you run on update. You just you keep the record not meeting the conditions in the database, and then you click debug, you select on update, and then you update it in the flow to meet these conditions. Let's look at that. So if I were to click debug and I select on update instead, and I select any record from the system and I run, it doesn't work. It doesn't meet any of the entry conditions. The donor ID was not changed. The original amount was not changed, and the transaction date was not changed. So we need to change one of those for this to run. Let's debug again. And on the same record, we're going to change the original amount to 700 and then run. Now it does run. So we updated in the, like before we debug, it's not meeting the condition requirements. And then we click debug, we select on update, and then we update it in the flow to meet the condition requirements. Okay, next, let's look at the context. Record triggered flows are always running in system context, and this is information you can find in the documentation. Record triggered flows are always running in system context without sharing. And also, if you attempt to look at the settings here, you will not find the option to change the context of the flow. This is always running in system context. Next, rollback. Record triggered flows are always running in rollback mode. If we go here and we click debug, you see run flow in rollback mode is gray. We cannot change that. So it's always running in rollback mode. If you're sending an email as part of the flow, the email doesn't go out. If you're creating a record, it doesn't actually get committed to the database, and so on. Okay, next we could skip entry conditions in order to test the logic only without having to test entry conditions. Sometimes you know, maybe it's not the time to test entry conditions just yet, or maybe I know that I have a problem with some other part of the logic and I don't have to worry about meeting the entry conditions for now. So you could do that by clicking debug, and then you see the option to skip start condition requirements, and then it will just work for whatever record we select. So let's select on update and then select this record. We're not making changes, but it's gonna work anyway. Last thing in regards to record triggered flows, you could run the flow as another user. To run the flow as another user, if we it says here run flow as another user. To do that, this option, it says here, this option is disabled in your org's process automation settings. Let me show you that. So when we click debug, run flow as another user here, this option is disabled in your org's process automation settings. So we're going to go to process automation settings, and then we'll have this option from setup, of course, process automation settings, let admins debug flows as other users. So we're going to select that and then save. And let's go back here and refresh this. And let's try again. Now we get to run this flow as another user. We can select that other user and then test debug with that user. And this is helpful to find information about permissions and sharing. So like if you do that, then it's running in like any, well, the record trigger flows in this case are running in system context, but for things like screen flow, when you run it as another user, then it runs with, you could have it run in user context, meaning you're going to evaluate if this person doesn't have access to a certain record or a certain object. So it's sometimes helpful to run flows as other users. This is everything for record triggered flows. We'll look at the other types in another recording.